The Simla Deputation, 1906. This was a major step towards the political development of Muslims of India because the partition of Bengal had already been made and now the Muslims were very hopeful of developing politically. Shimla Deputation basically consisted of 35 Muslim leaders who went to meet Lord Minto under the leadership of Sir Aga Khan in Shimla. Demands of separate electorate and weightage for the Muslims were put forward before him. Now, what happened during Shimla Deputation, we'll discuss about it later. First of all, let us see what was that series of events that led to this Shimla Deputation. The Muslims, they went to meet the Viceroy for improved relations with the British. Similarly, the British also knew now that in order to counter the Hindus politically, they needed to have good relations with the Muslims. Although John Morley, the Secretary of State, he thought that Muslims asking for separate electorate and weightage, they were a little too exaggerated in their demand, and this demand was very undemocratic. Lord Minto, however, accepted their arguments and he agreed to what they wanted. Why? Why did he take this step? To show the Muslims that the British were there to help them and they wanted the Muslims to grow not only politically but socially and economically as well. Muslims, on the other hand, also wanted to show loyalty towards the British because earlier on the War of Independence had left a very bad mark on the British mind for the Muslims. They were very hopeful after the partition of Bengal and believed their future demands would also be listened to and will be fulfilled. In this way, they also wanted to show the importance of partition of Bengal for them. They also made it clear in front of Lord Minto that protection of Muslims' rights was now of utmost importance for them. The Muslims also believed that they had no political party in hand as the Indian National Congress was very evidently siding with the Hindus and supporting them in every respect. Congress, since had demanded elections, they asked for democracy and competitive exams to be conducted for the appointment of government jobs. This meant that Hindus wanted to suppress the Muslims, both socially, educationally, economically, and politically. How? Because Muslims, being very junior in the field of politics, were not able to get majority seats. That meant that they would never be a part of the government since Hindus had asked for democracy, in which the rule is given to the majority. Similarly, in the competitive exams, those Hindus who were studying in English medium schools and colleges and those Hindus who were taking science as a subject had a greater edge of getting appointment in government jobs. On the other hand, it was very much evident that Muslims would not be able to get any government job. Similarly, in the social field as well, the Muslims, they wanted to make it a point that they are not going to let their culture go. Why? Because the Hindus had also demanded to replace Urdu by English and Hindi as an official language. Not only that, Muslims were also endangered religiously. How? Because Arya Samaj was forcibly converting the Muslims to Hinduism. Other than facing these acts of hatred from the Muslims, from the Hindus, the Muslims also were hopeful from the liberal government in England who had taken over in 1905. As Liberal government wanted to give equal rights to the Indians, Muslims were of the hope that this was the time to get maximum benefits from the British government in England. Demand of weightage was also ensuring them a chance in even Hindu majority areas. All these demands they were fulfilled in the way of being a promise made by Lord Minto. He accepted Muslims' demand, which meant that in future the Constitution of India would hold these clauses of giving the right of separate electorate and weightage to the Muslims. And this is the most important point of Shimla Deputation, as he had promised that these demands would be given a constitutional line. British realized and willingly started working with the Muslims. They also realized the importance of Muslims as a main community of India, and also they wanted to have good relations with them. All previous ill feelings, starting from the time of War of Independence 1857 till now, had come to an end. Achieving separate electorate became the prime objective of Muslims of India, because of which they started lining them up for entering the political field. Demand of weightage was also accepted by the Muslims. That meant that not only the Muslims would be able to get seats in the Muslim majority provinces, but they would also get a certain number of seats in the Hindu majority areas. This deputation also helped in establishing independent role of Muslims in politics and led to the formation of Muslim League, as was suggested by Lord Minto himself in the time of Shimla Deputation. Many Muslims they broke away from Congress that undermined the power of Congress and gave a shook to the Indian National Congress. And these Muslims then joined this All India Muslim League later on. Rivalry between the Hindus and Muslims it also reached at constitutional level. And then a sense of unity developed among the Muslims, as after so long they had worked with unity, and they also realized the strength of making collective efforts. Demand of separate electorate also strengthened the two nation theory, as they knew that having a joint electorate would not yield them seats. Why? Because the majority population of India, being Hindus, would definitely vote for the Hindu candidates, and the Muslims would otherwise not have been able to get seats in the government.